All the footage you're seeing was taken along Bolin Creek. I've been coming into these woods for about 14 years with my kids as a trail runner and a hiker. If you hopped on a bike at the art center, you'd only have to ride about a mile, and then you'd be here at Wilson Park, the closest access point to the forest from downtown Carrboro. A few years ago, I showed up here to enjoy the green grassy field that had been here for so long. And instead, what I saw was land moving equipment and a big, muddy strip. The quiet field had turned into a transportation corridor. The greenway that you see right in front of you had been built, and I hadn't even known about it. Though Bolin Creek is many miles long, the section that is endangered is from Homestead Road in the north near Chapel Hill High School, down to Estes Extension near Wilson Park in the south. And the blue line here, that represents Bolin Creek itself. The green area surrounding Bolin Creek is known as Bolin Creek Forest, and it's also called Carolina North. So another thought that occurred to me when I walked up here and saw this was that I had heard about all the rumblings to pave along Bolin Creek for years. All the years that I've been playing back there, I've been hearing people say, did you know they're going to pave a trail along the creek? And I always thought, well, that sounds like a terrible idea. I'm going to do something about that. And then when I saw this, I thought, well, I didn't do anything about this. Why didn't I do anything? So right then and there, I swore that if I have a chance to do something about the paving down there along the creek, I've got to do something. I immediately thought, what if I walk down this trail and I discovered that this isn't just some isolated little greenway that connects back down there with Estes Extension? What if this goes all the way into the woods already? What if I'm already too late? I wanted to make sure that what happened to this field could never happen in Bolin Creek Forest. I set out with my camera to find out all that I could about the town's plans to pave along Bolin Creek. My research started with Julie McClintock. She's been the president of the Friends of Bolin Creek for 12 years now. The Friends of Bolin Creek are an advocacy group that has been protecting the forest for many years. Julie's a natural teacher, dedicated and totally enthusiastic.
And you take it all out. And there's Jones Creek, which is in Carrboro. Agricultural land is here, and there's some natural springs. It starts and it comes down, and some people. Look at that. Beautiful pictures.
She told me about the Bolin Creek Greenway Master Conceptual Plan. The town of Carrboro has been working from this plan as a guideline for greenway construction along Bolin Creek since 2009. I learned that inside of each of these numbered squares is a section on or near Bolin Creek where the paving is supposed to happen. Down at Wilson Park, on the greenway I mentioned before, that was actually Phase 1A and was completed in 2013. I felt relief though when I looked at the map, because I could tell that no bulldozers or moving equipment had actually been down into Bolin Creek. I double-checked with Julie and asked her if there were any current plans to pave along the creek, and to my surprise, her answer was yes. I discovered that construction of Phase 1B up near the high school had already started in July of 2016, and it was not without controversy.
I'm Daniel Kleisler. I graduated in 2016 from Chapel Hill High School after running cross country for 4 years and track for 3 years. I was varsity captain, co-varsity captain on cross country and track my senior year. I ran All-State in 2015, I guess it was, in cross country. And now I am at UNC Chapel Hill studying health policy and management. Now what you're about to see is my first visit back to my old high school after a proposed greenway trail had been put in through my old cross country course. I hadn't seen any pictures or what this new trail looks like, and as you'll come to find out, I was very shocked at what I had to discover. What I would typically see before me would be a flat area of grass with a group of trees in the middle of it, right? Which is decidedly not what I'm seeing right now. Very surprised at what's before me here. But so this would have been flat, and from this point onwards, it's a 1,000-meter stretch of just grass that, at least from this perspective, looks like it's gone. This beautiful stretch of trail that we had is now replaced by, I'm gonna do air quotes, an intersection right here that stretches as far as I can see. So if we look at this trail, it used to be 2 people across is who used to be able to run down this trail. I could run with 1 person on the side of me and then maybe 1 more if we felt really close to each other as we were running. This is not what I mean, obviously I'm expecting a big difference, but this is not what I was expecting. And it's very sad because this is where state champions have trained for 20 years, and something that has brought a lot of legacy to this team, and something that made this team very unique. The access to green space and to forest has kind of really been taken away. But here, this is the only place that Chapel Hill High School cross country is able to practice. And it's gone.
As I walked with Dan, I wondered, how did we get from this to this? How did gone happen? About 5 years ago, city planners walked the course with Ron Olson. He was the cross-country coach back then, and the man who built the course with his own 2 hands. In a 2012 email about the course being crossed only once, Coach Olson stated to city planners, "If that is correct, then I am good to go." Yet here, on official plans timestamped March of 2015, one can see multiple trail crossings in the works. In this image, we are shown the section of the cross-country course in contention. So the dashed yellow line shows the normal path of the cross-country course. The blue line, coming in from the left, is the greenway, heading over Bolin Creek and towards the cross-country course. The green line, branching off from the intersection of the blue and the yellow line, that is where Coach Olson agreed to the compromise of just 1 crossing. The red dashed line shows the town's plans to cross the cross-country course 1, 2, 3 times in total. And then you can see where the trail runs parallel along the cross-country course for some distance. So 1 crossing has become 3, and the plans for the path were complete, yet neither the current coach nor anyone else at Chapel Hill High School would learn of these plans until almost a year later, on April 25th, 2016, just a month before the planned groundbreaking.
And because they said that they got consent from Ron Olson, which they didn't, I think the agreed upon definition of consent in our society, it's been discussed a lot recently, doesn't state that somebody not saying no doesn't mean yes, right? So because they had gotten that lack of response from Olson, they thought that they didn't need to consult the new stakeholder, which was Joan Nesbitt Maine. So she was never approached with the idea of this, she never had a say.
And so that's why you all showed up pretty fired up at the board meeting.
And that's where fired up was 1 word. Yes, we all arrived en masse at the first town hall meeting. We were joined with more people. There were people standing in the hallways. The fire marshal said that there were too many people. And by one of the final town hall meetings, the entire East Chapel Hill High School cross-country team, our greatest rivals, showed up, the whole team, to sit in the back, to sit in the hallways, to sit between chairs and show their support for something that they knew was inherently and fundamentally wrong.
No one from the town of Carrboro has ever contacted me, my athletic director, or my principal with any information whatsoever, as you talked about this process, for input about the bulldozers set to begin destruction on May 16th. I only heard about this May 8th pre-construction public information section this past Monday, just 8 days ago, when I got an email. In fact, no one, so I wonder how the town of Carrboro can honestly claim to have been in touch with Chapel Hill High stakeholders, especially me, the cross-country coach, all along in this process.
Once we recognize that maybe in the past there were misunderstandings, we have to fix mistakes of the past, and the mistake of this path. There's no intentional, I'm sorry. And I know that everyone on this board probably ran for alderman because you love this town and you want to help this town. And here are so many members of this community and of this town who are here telling you how you can help and how you can help this town that all of us love, that I'm sure you guys love. And this is it. We can find a compromise.
I'm going to be brief, but I'd just like to remind you that I don't think never in a million years would you consider a plan to pave through a soccer field or a football field. The cross-country course does not cross this project. The project crosses the trail.
Is Trish still here?
Sure. Oh yeah, she's in the house.
I am very surprised, given the communication I've had, that she goes through and says the exact plan that we heard last week, with no input from anything we've provided. Having this path and being so married to it, this basically destroys the course as it is. People will not continue.
So these are the shoes we race in. They're lightweight and they have metal spikes at the bottom for traction on the trails. If the bike path plan you proposed happens, our feet would slip on the pavement, which is uncomfortable, dangerous, and makes our times much slower.
The very course that, paired with motivation, world-class coaching, and pure talent, has built nationally ranked runners. I love this town, I love my team, and I love our course. It has a competitive, emotional, and historic value that does not deserve to be encroached on when a win-win solution has been proposed.
The trees are just as much a part of the trail as the path itself. And I strongly urge you not to destroy this canopy around the trail, around this really beautiful place to run and to be.
I wanted to follow up with Trish's remarks to say I serve on the TAB. This is something that we have been discussing now for a number of years. I was completely and utterly unaware as a TAB member, and I was the chair last year, until February actually, of this path and the route that it is following. So while I knew, and our TAB members knew, that there was going to be a 1B, and there was going to be where it was, but never did we assume or were we told of what the route would be or that it would put in jeopardy the cross-country team.
You know, here I'm on the school improvement team at Chapel Hill High School, and we never heard anything about this.
We need to know more about how the process happened so we can make sure it doesn't happen that way again. But also understanding that the larger plan, this phase, in terms of just in general, in concept, was moved forward in 2009, unanimously by that board at that time.
Over 15 years, a lot of process has and has not happened, and players have changed, and residents have changed, and needs have changed, and as someone pointed out, even the forest has changed. And so it's really, I think, difficult to assign blame in any one particular place.
Who is to blame? It looks like it's the Board of Aldermen versus the community here, but there's more to it than that. The city planners, not the Board of Aldermen, were the ones who set this entire plan into motion. Why they didn't make these new trail crossings for Phase 1B transparent to everyone earlier remains unclear. And once the plans were made public, the planners then told the Board of Aldermen that the town would lose the funding if they did not act right away.
Dane was just kind of asking about if we put a pause on or if we had any type of recourse.
Like change orders on the contract. I don't know what that would.
When things aren't done in the open, this is the result. Division of the community and an incomplete process that usually goes in the favor of those who made the plan.
The pull of this sunk cost of how long this project has taken, how much time and effort and really hard work has been put into this project. That's all real time and that's all really important. But that's not what is at stake here today.
And we sent a letter from the school improvement team explaining, you know, we've got all new administrators. Mm-hmm. We've got all new kids, of course. We've got new parents. You know, what continuity can we point to here where the process that you've pointed to actually makes a difference?
It doesn't make sense. Like, their decision doesn't make sense. Why would they frustrate so many constituents who vote for them just to cross and ruin a cross-country trail 3 times when they so easily could have done it once? It just, like, even in the planning, why would they even do that?
I don't know. Maybe it was something like it felt like a precedent they wanted to set.
This path is designed as a trap. The trap is to find little paths, little tiny incursions into Bolin Creek Forest. That's what it's always been, and you've brought it up. You start with a little pavement, and then finally everything's paved around it, and then what they say is, Oh, darn, isn't it silly that it doesn't connect up?
Yep.
When we had 1,200 signatures, 1,200 citizens said right before this board that we do not want pavement on Bolin Creek.
They were not looking for a win-win. And we were proposing win-wins.
Yeah.
That's not their interest.
And I don't recognize this piece of land at all. I mean, it's just sad. It's not making me angry. I was angry a couple months ago. It's not making me angry. It's just all gone.
Yeah, so my motion is for the resolution with option 2, and I'm happy to add some language along the lines of town staff will work with the school system, ensure that their various constituents are appropriately engaged in addressing impacts of the path on the cross-country trail.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
And it just, I hate to be cynical at 18 years of age. Everybody talks about this time being a time when all paths in life are open and you have so many options to choose from. And I hate at this time to be thinking that I don't have the power to walk down those paths. I don't have that power to affect change if the people who have that power are going to look down on me in the way that those people did in those meetings. So it's disheartening is the word that I would use. It's just beautiful conditions.
If Phase 1B serves as a precedent for how the town of Carrboro approaches developments in the Bolin Creek forest, then we need to come together as a community and create a new process before Phases 3 and 4 are approached. Because Phases 3 and 4 hold the true heart of the forest, the most important sections to preserve. As I pondered all of this, I sought a different perspective on just how valuable Bolin Creek and Carolina North are.
Darker times have come, and I know I'm done.
I've heard a lot of people say that Bolin Creek isn't a real forest, that it's just a patch of woods. See what I saw and judge for yourself.
Darker times have come, I can't find my way. No matter what you say, we're running faster forward. I can't find my way.
The flight path here is taking us over Horace Williams Airport, and as I'm looking out to the right, I'm looking right over Phases 3 and 4.
Just close our eyes. There are walls of all around us.
This portion of the flight takes us over Claremont South, across Bolin Creek, and across Phase 1B's construction path. Then we turn towards Smith Middle School and head south along Sewell School Road.
To be done, we cannot wait till it all comes down to the time. Just let it go.
The trees you're seeing right now are Carolina North, Bolin Creek Forest, and what the town calls Phases 3 and 4.
Everything that we hold on to, just let it go. It's dark inside. Just close our eyes. We're running faster forward. It's dark inside. We cannot wait for the end to come.
I sat down with Board of Aldermen member Randy Haven O'Donnell to talk about Phases 3 and 4 and the possible legacy Carrboro can have.
Is it a foregone conclusion that it's going to be paved?
You know, that's a great question, and it's a great question for you to ask me today, because 3 days ago I received a wonderful little email from a cross-country runner who reminded not only me but the rest of our board, no, it's not too late. It's if there's a way forward that will include a broader view and help folks to feel that they're part of a solution, and that a plan has been put in place that they weren't part of, or that goes so sorely against their interests, then we need to rethink it. This child recognized the importance of thinking of the forest first. What do we want our children and our grandchildren to know that we stood for? How does our town want to be known? We have a magnificent treasure right in the middle of our town, an urban forest. It's not meant to be a bypass.
Yeah. Also in a way, is a forest, do we want future generations to experience a forest as, a forest means it's woods with a trail paved through it and lights maybe every 50 feet?
Sure. And one of the things that's important to that, Carrboro has been a tree city for 30 years.
What does a tree city mean? Is it a designation of some sort?
A designation of a tree city means that it follows the Arbor Day Foundation guidelines for protecting and preserving and conserving trees and forest lands. Because Carrboro is the most densely populated municipality in the state.
It is.
It is. So when you consider
that we still have
this, it becomes all the more important to protect it.
Yeah.
And we're, I think, the only municipality in the state, maybe even in the nation, that is like a donut, that the donut hole in the middle is forested.
Right. Wow. Okay. So
it's very impressive.
in terms of home values and businesses wanting to be here and things like that, that even increases the value for people that live here by preserving.
Absolutely, because it's something that you can't replicate.
And once it starts to be fragmented.
Once it's fragmented, once it's cut down, once it's in any way made more vulnerable than it naturally is as a result of upstream and downstream and on either side of it, you've taken away a resource that is irreplaceable.
So we could be remembered as the town that preserved something like this instead of what many other towns have done.
Yes, we certainly have the opportunity that our legacy be that we were forest first.
Let's talk about how long have you been coming into the forest? When did you first start coming into Bolin Creek Forest?
I would say it's been about 17 years.
Wow.
About that. About 17 years I've been coming to this forest.
As you know, here in Carrboro, there's a lot of people that don't even know this area exists. So if someone came back here for the first time, first of all, what kind of impression do you think the person would get upon their first visit back here?
I would imagine they would be overjoyed. That's the only thing I could think, because you just don't have areas like this. It is, of course, it's a forest that has had interference. It was farmland, and there were mistakes made when they were farming that changed the structure of the land, and there are invasive species here. But beyond that, you just have quiet. You have the birds singing, you have reptiles and amphibians, you have foxes running through. It's gorgeous. It smells good. You've got the sound of a creek next to you, and you are what, a 10-minute drive from downtown at the most? I mean, how can you beat that? And you've got, oh, here we go.
That was good timing, actually. That was a good little break. And you also come in to take pictures.
And to take pictures. My one main purpose is to find wildlife. I love wildlife, and so for me, it's like a scavenger hunt. You know, you're always looking for something. I want it to look like what it looks like to me when I see them.
What's unique about Bolin Forest?
Well, the fact that it's a stopover for warbler species, that's pretty unique in a fairly built-up area to have this little tiny corridor that's like a safety zone for wildlife. You're going to get warblers from Canada, from Maine, from the Midwest, and they're coming. You're also going to get local warblers. You're going to get ones from the Virginias, coming. They're just starting their journey down south to South America where they're going to spend the winter. So here they found this one, really nice safe zone. There are probably lots of them along the way, but there are fewer and fewer. But here it's safe, and here there's water, and here there are bugs, and it's just this wonderful little spot. You see coyotes back here, but they're not bothering anyone. You see foxes, there's every kind of wildlife. But the idea that in spring and fall, these warblers on their way, sometimes just passing through, will stop here, get water, they'll stay for 3 or 4 days, stock up on food, and on they go. And so it's like a little center for them. It's wonderful. Not to mention the fact that you have salamanders breeding, you have a lot of reptiles and amphibians, you have a safe place for box turtles. So many turtles get hit on the road, and here you've got this intact 387, 400 acres where they live, breed, carry on generation after generation, and they're safe. And it's, you can't beat this area. And that's what's great about beavers. They make vernal pools. They make these they flood an area, and then when it gets flooded, it's a place for amphibians. And it's also, that kind of soil is going to soak up any kind of silt, any kind of pollution that comes in, gets soaked up here before it soaks back into the creek. Warblers adore the sound of water, and they'll come down and bathe, and it's just a signal for them, and it's like a magnet for warblers and for other birds. You have cardinals and catbirds and brown thrashers. Everybody stops by, and they have to take a little bath on like a hot August day. And then this is more riparian zone. And because it's so dense, none of those hawks, none of the owls can get in there to get to all the warblers. And so this is like gold. So sometimes you'll look under logs, and you don't even have to really look. You'll see one tucked up underneath, because box turtles really feel secure when they take their nap in cover. It's a small area, and it is, I don't mean to say that it's, it's perfect. It's not pristine. It's been abused year after year, and yet, even with all the invasive plants and with everything else that goes on here, the animals keep coming, and the people keep coming. People love it here.
Even without the pavement.
We don't need our human touch on everything.
Yeah, just let the woods be the woods.
Let the woods be the woods.
Yeah, hi, I'm Mike Paul. I'm a stream ecologist. I work as an environmental consultant in the Triangle area. My graduate work was in urban stream ecology, and I've been working in the field of freshwater ecology for more than 25 years. Yeah, so this right here is an example of a nick point, a stormwater nick point. What happens is water that runs off of pavement and rooftops and collects in streams and stream channels will run off in a concentrated flow, and it has ostensibly formed a new channel here. This would have been a small, very small, grassy, maybe forested, ephemeral swale, so it would have only filled at certain times of the year. But what happens now is because there's so much more stormwater coming off of asphalt and impervious surfaces in the watershed, it gathers and concentrates, and it forms these nick points, these drops in the soil that you can see right here. There's a lower one, and then there's an upper one. And what happens is, like Niagara Falls, which is slowly migrating up the Niagara River Valley, this will continue to erode away that nick point, at the nick point, and the nick point will move up through the watershed. And what happens is all the sediment that is under that channel ends up being eroded and carried down into the stream. So the biggest sources of sediment in this watershed are coming from urban, impervious surface affected stormwater channels like this. They're not coming from the floodplain. There's been people who have said that, you know, the trails along the stream are a major source of erosion. They're a very minor part of the erosion budget of the watershed. Most of the erosion is coming as a result of this impervious surface and the stormwater problems it creates, like this erosion and these nick point migration. It's because there's so much carbon in the soils, when water gets onto a floodplain and seeps down through those floodplain soils, all the change in oxygen in the soil, that anoxia that drives biogeochemical reaction, leads to the breakdown of organic compounds. It leads to the removal of nitrogen, denitrification, sending nitrogen back up into the atmosphere. So these floodplain soils are really important in removing pollutants that would otherwise threaten the stream. So if you pave them and don't allow that infiltration to occur, that's another whammy, so that you don't get that infiltration, you don't get that pollution treatment.
So if we paved a 1.5 mile long strip from Homestead all the way down to SD's extension, we're basically creating a 1.5 mile long strip about 10 feet wide where that won't happen.
Right, exactly. So we're stealing that pollution removal capacity from the forest, from the floodplain ecosystem. So all that, if you multiply the width of that road times the length, that's the amount of area you've taken out of pollution reduction. That's a service, that's an ecosystem service that the floodplain provides free of charge that we'll be removing from service. This is stream food right here. This is the energy that drives a stream ecosystem, and it's all the leaves and wood that fall in from what we call the riparian forest, the forest alongside the stream, that again helps to drive the food web in the stream, which ultimately ends up as fish food, which may end up as eagle food down in Jordan Lake. But this organic matter is continually falling in. This year, this time of the year, we get especially a big pulse of this organic matter. But frequently, if I picked up a pile like this, I should see it just full of aquatic insects, the shredding stoneflies, shredding diptera, true flies like chapulid larvae, and I'm just not seeing a lot of those bugs in here, which is not a particularly good sign. So we have a lot of pavement in the watershed, and like I said, pavement is one of the worst things you can do to a watershed. So adding more is not a good thing. This watershed's already under stress from that. Large expanses of intact forest are pretty uncommon in urban and developed areas around the country. And we have a fairly large intact forest system around this creek here. And that's really rare.
And so if this was paved, you're saying that this would actually increase erosion because there'd be more water going in. There'd be more water going into the creek instead of going into the ground.
That's right. So
okay.
What pavement does, the amount of pavement in a watershed is an excellent predictor of a lot of stressors. Sediment, nutrients, runoff, polyaromatic hydrocarbons, things that come off asphalt itself. But the major stress it produces is it doesn't allow water to infiltrate. So it increases the amount of runoff, and that creates more water in the channel. So a channel like that should only fill to bank full, what we call bank full, every 1.5 to 2 years. The bank full event happens, and that's an energy, that's what we call a channel forming flow. That's when the power inside the channel is at its maximum amount and will do the most erosion. That should only happen about every 1.5 to 2 years. When you urbanize a watershed, when you put pavement in a watershed and cause the same amount of rain that would only generate a channel about half full of water, it creates excess runoff, so now the channel fills up every time it rains. And so that bankful event, instead of happening every 1.5 to 2 years, is happening every 8 to 9 months.
I'm a lobbyist for the Nature Conservancy. I work around the country on conservation deals, land acquisition, and also trying to figure out how to make it work with the government agencies, from local agencies all the way up to federal agencies. And so I've seen a number of different projects around the country and how they work. One thing that I did have come to realize is that putting pavement in a riparian zone is something that we strive in conservation projects not to do. We've seen the greenway that's along Umstead Road over in Chapel Hill, and we continue to see more extreme storm events.
Chapel Hill is building a greenway along Umstead Road right next to a lower section of Bolin Creek. So the creek runs under SD's extension and all along Umstead down to Columbia Street. Umstead Road serves as a case study for what the future of Bolin Creek Forest might become if we allow it to be paved.
That was constructed over the last year. These extreme storm events have scoured underneath the pavement. Chapel Hill's already had to repair that, and that's one of the arguments that we've said is that we don't want to have a facility that proves obsolete in a few short years. That's a waste of our taxpayer resources. And not to mention that having pavement right next to a creek will impede a tree's normal life cycle, and I will guarantee you that in a few years you'll see a lot of those trees that are between that piece of pavement and the creek will die off. You'll see more riprap, which doesn't...
What's riprap?
Riprap are kind of large chunks of rock. They are used to stabilize banks where there's extreme erosion, and
so that's like repair crews come in and pack the banks.
That's right. That's
that.
Right. And so
so they're not even done down there. And I've driven past there, and I've seen a lot of ripraps. You're saying before they've even finished, they keep having to repair it because of the incidents of flooding.
That's correct. And I again back to the original point, I think that transportation is important. Greenways are important. We're all for that. But we also want to have greenways that aren't a waste of our resources and that are actually better suited for the purposes that they're designed.
Cool. How common is it for towns that have this kind of opportunity? How common is it for them to take the bold step to say we're going to protect this?
It's very uncommon because to have 1,400 acres in the middle of and between two towns, frankly, that's undeveloped is really remarkable. Usually towns are looking at pocket parks, 5, 10 acres at best, something that wasn't developed. But to actually have a functioning forest that's in the middle of town is something really quite rare. It commands a lot of attention and could command a lot of money.
If we're going to take phases 3 and 4 off the table, we can't be divided as a community. We can't let the chance to lead the state in preservation pass us by. And luckily, I don't think we will.
The question at hand is actually not how to go through Bolin Forest, but is how to achieve a common goal, which is creating a north-south route, essentially. And so I think I'd want to just extend your comments that in fact, let's not lead with that question, because the question is really how do we want to navigate Carrboro from north to south?
If we're going to follow Alderwoman Cheney's advice, we need to remove the old 2009 narrative. So we need to get rid of the words phases 3 and 4 and replace them with this.
And I'd add that it's not just about connectivity. It's also about the natural environment.
And to follow Alderwoman Haven O'Donnell's advice, we need to change her sign to this.
And having the great treasure of having a urban forest in our midst, which is an unbelievable gift.
Over the last 4 months, I've come to feel that when it comes to nature, what we preserve preserves us in return. This isn't just about pavement, because Bolin Creek Forest and Carolina North aren't just the woods. The forest is a living thing, and having it right here in town is more important to our quality of life than a greenway will ever be. A greenway in Bolin Creek will basically turn it into another city park, and city parks can't give us what a forest gives us.
And we still have the opportunity to do the right thing here.
And like I said, pavement is one of the worst things you can do to a watershed.
We certainly have the opportunity that our legacy be that we were forest first.
We don't need our human touch on everything.
Yeah, just let the woods be the woods.
Let the woods be the woods.